Next dimension, care about people and show it. Are you the type of person that actually cares about other people? Can you let go of your own defensiveness long enough to see the good things in other people? Do you care about what's going on in their lives? Because, by the way, you can't fake it. You can't fake that you care about people. If you really don't care about them, chances are you're not going to make it as a leader for very long, or at least be the type of leader that someone would look up to. Do you greet people warmly? Do you take time to chat about off-the-job matters? I know that if it's too much socializing, it becomes a productivity problem. But do you take at least a few minutes to find out what that person's doing? Even if they don't like to share with you, do you take at least some time to smile and say, hey, how's it going? How's your weekend? Even if they just give you sort of negatives back, do you still make an effort to do that? Do you publicly recognize and praise accomplishments? Do you tell people they're doing a good job, and for those that you know would appreciate it, do you tell them they're doing a good job in front of others? So you should never correct somebody in front of others, but you should always be willing to say good things about them in front of others. They'll usually accept that. Some people are a little shy, and so they'd rather hear it one-on-one. Do you maintain a sense of humor? Because it might make it sound like you have to be this robotic leader, always sort of looking at how you're going to lead. Have some fun. Lighten it up a little bit. You know, are you the type of person that creates a spirit around you? Are fair, honest, and consistent? This goes back to ethics. This goes back to, are we treating people right? Do people know that if you act in a certain way, it's acceptable? And do people know that if you act in a way that's unacceptable, that you're likely going to be talked to about that? Your good buddies who you might have to lead, are you going to be their friend by pointing out to them that if they don't fix a certain thing, they're really going to get in trouble? That's what a friend would do. A friend wouldn't let it go, hoping that it'll fix itself. They're basically, by letting it go, they're hanging that friend out to dry, because someday that behavior is going to result in discipline. And by not telling the person that, you're really hurting your friendship. So, are you fair, honest, and consistent? Do you respect and appreciate and treat people with dignity? Know how to correct. This is interesting. When someone isn't doing what we want, are you the type of person who can actually constructively have a conversation with them without getting all emotional yourself, or getting all avoidance oriented, or getting all mean and nasty? Can you phrase comments descriptively? Do you tell people, hey, what are you thinking, you idiot? Or do you find ways of being much more specific about what the person is doing or not doing, and how you can become more effective? When you are correcting someone, can you do it in a way that you believe that they can fix it? Or do you do it in a way that basically you've decided that they're a write-off, and how you're talking to them basically says, I don't even have an expectation that you can improve on this? A lot of that will determine that person's effectiveness. Okay? So one of the things that we have is, if you're known to lose your temper, or to scream, or to get really upset and emotional, you got to ask yourself, what messages am I signaling? Let me ask you that. A manager who's overly aggressive and hard, what reaction? The employees might smarten up for a little bit, but what will start to happen with employees if they're known for their manager overreacting and basically coming down like a hammer on them?
They won't tell them anything?
Absolutely. So it goes back to, I won't share anything. And they'll actually have some sense of hiding. They'll almost they'll almost be looking at ways to sabotage the manager, or to do things that will absolutely drive the manager squirrely. Can you remember back to high school days where you had teachers that would just kind of lose it? Wouldn't that be part of the game, is to see how you could make that person lose it without having to sort of get in trouble? I know that I played that game, and I'm a pretty good constructive guy. And if I was doing it, I know there were people who had a lot more malicious intent than me out there. So on the managers that just fly off the handle, their people are playing those managers. Guess who's in charge? The employees. Because they're the ones that are pulling the triggers and pushing the buttons. It was funny, I was watching my son, and he was waiting for something to load up on the computer. So he's just punching away at the buttons. And I said, what are you doing? He says, they're buttons. They're meant to be pushed. And I thought, wow, there's something I could use. We have the buttons, and when people know how to push them, especially if they've worked around us long enough, they just have fun pushing the buttons. Even if the work's a little bit boring, at least I can push some buttons and see what happens. And what's interesting, if you think about family, the family installed the buttons. So they're even better at pushing them, because they actually made the buttons, so they're even better at pushing them. So can you correct people and do it in a way that is respectful? Know how to accept correction, right? The reality is if you're defensive about your own weaknesses, if you're not prepared to say, hey, maybe I screwed up. I know I've lost it with my kids from time to time, and I've been man enough at least to go and say, hey, I overreacted to that, right? Are we willing to allow our guard to go down so that we say, hey, I'm sorry I did that. I apologize for that. I was wrong. Because if leaders would stand up, isn't that what bugs us about politicians and other? It's the leaders who won't stand up and say, you know what, I messed up. Now, to some degree, because they're coached, they all want to stand up now and say they messed up, hoping to get our sympathy. The reality is, if you genuinely are able to say, you know what, I haven't been doing things the right way, I want to change them, people will respect you for that.